Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are back here joined live today by Kristin Bergunder. And guess what? It's time to talk interior design and all she does to help her spaces around town, because we all could use some help with that. And also, she's a realtor as well. So many accolades to her name, many hats that she wears. Let me have her introduce herself to start. Go ahead, Kristin. Please
Hi, good
tell us a little
morning.
bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name's Kristin Bergunder. I own and operate a small interior design firm called Kristin and Interior Design out of the Indianapolis area, northern suburbs. And yes, I am also a real estate agent. So twofold, I do flip flop back and forth almost on a daily basis between the two positions, but they work so well together that they kind of mold and shape. And I have clients that cross over from one to the other. So I thoroughly enjoy doing both.
Got it. Well, and how do
Yeah,
we reach out to you? Would you mind sharing your website or phone number?
sure. Yeah. So my design website is www.kristenandinteriordesign. It's Kristin with two I's. And then the best number to get a hold of me at would be 317-376-3351.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. So today, you want to talk about which aspect of your work to start?
So something that I did want to have a little bit of a chat about in terms of like preparation phases, if you will. One of the questions I get asked a lot from folks, uh, typically when we're going into like a remodel project, for example, your life gets quite disrupted when you're working in kitchens and bathrooms and things of that nature. And so how do we kind of prepare ourselves for those kind of projects, not just from a planning standpoint, but also from a living aspect? So a lot of times when I work with clients from a real estate perspective, and let's just say they're getting ready to move into a new home, I always tell people when they're going to sell their home or when they're going to purchase their home, two of the biggest things that tend to be incredibly disruptive are flooring and paint. Because those things, when we do flooring, we almost have to kind of move out of those spaces completely, and it's
Completely.
incredibly disruptive, right? And then paint, same thing. We're shifting a lot of things around. It's just incredibly disruptive. And in those situations when we are, buying or selling a home, I always try to explain those things to people and kind of trying to either plan for that new move in, or when we're going to sell, that's a pain point for people where they want to get it done before they move into the home.
Yeah.
And then, dealing with people who are living in their home and renovating, that's a whole nother ball of wax.
It's funny you say that. I have my neighbor right next door to my home. Her and her husband have three kids, one in college, two high school. They ripped out their whole kitchen area, expanded it, moved the washer dryer to the bathroom, switched the bathroom to this project started about 7 months ago, and this morning the workers are still out there. Thankfully, they have a full basement with a kitchen with extra
Yeah.
rooms, but it has been longer than expected. They're
Yeah.
unhappy, of course, how long it's taken, but they didn't plan for it to be so long. But what about someone who was thinking it was going to be a month and they made other plans to stay at a relative's house or friend's house or a hotel, and then this happens? You are so right when it comes to that.
Well, and I think sometimes the expectations from the beginning tend to be, you know, I mean, going into like television shows and things like that, right? And they come to you and they've got, well, here's the tile we picked, and here's the floor we picked, and here's the paint we picked, and we're all set to go, and we'll be done, and you'll be back in your home and, living peachy in 4 weeks. That's never the case.
Yep.
But I think the biggest thing is planning and preparation. I think sometimes people get so wrapped up in like the final product,
Yeah.
they want to pick out the pretty things, and they have visuals for what it's going to look like. But the planning process of it, just like anything else, whether you're, doing a project at home, buying a house, selling a house, whatever it is that you're doing, that
Yeah.
planning process is going to set you up for success. And so the biggest thing with remodel projects in the home, and I've had clients that have done, like you'd mentioned, really big remodel projects where they're either adding on to a home or they're moving rooms around within the space. And again, going to kitchens and bathrooms, if you don't have an extra bath, the mass majority of people don't have two kitchens to work
Yeah.
from. Even if they have an extra bar area, it's not going to be equipped with the stove and all of the things. And so most of them not anyways, but I think trying to, and then if there's kids in the home, that, can be even more challenging. With kitchens, I usually tell people trying to keep, and depending on if it's like a full gut job or what it might be, trying to keep those appliances in place for as long as humanly possible until they actually have to be removed is usually really beneficial. We're utilizing the refrigerator, the stove, microwave. If the stove has to be, removed, doing things like planning crock pot meals. A skillet is absolutely fantastic. When we were remodeling my kitchen, I had, just one of those skillets that you plug in on the counter, and I used it like a regular stove. Toaster ovens are a fantastic thing these days because they have air fryers built in them.
Yeah.
Those number of things. And that's an appliance that even if you just buy it for that project, you can continue to utilize it later on. Or if you already have one in place, we do, pizzas and tater tots and chicken, and so I think that there's a number of things that you can do if you think about those things ahead of time. I mean, just the idea of packing up your whole kitchen so that you can, take everything out of it is like, that gives you a little bit of anxiety.
A lot.
Yes. And so, again, I think sitting down and truly making a list for yourself. I mean, the mass majority of kitchen remodels, again, if you've got that planning phase up front taken care of, and you have your cabinets on order and your timelines in place, and you have an idea of what that project flow is going to look like, then you're not scrambling at the last minute, or you're not concerned about materials coming in for that contractor, which would delay that progress. So there's a contractor I work with in particular where he doesn't even really like to start a bathroom project, for example, unless he knows that the client has almost everything picked out with the exception of like a faucet. He's like, I would like to make sure they have everything. I don't care if it's sitting in their garage.
Yeah.
But as many materials as you can get here, and then having that conversation back and forth, because there's certain things that these contractors don't do, like countertops, for example. And most of the time that these companies come in and template, everything kind of sits at a standstill sometimes for a couple of weeks waiting for those to go in. So I really think that pre-planning upfront process is crucial to make sure that you're not totally stressed out throughout the process, and then mentally not trying to push the project faster than what it realistically will go. And so most of my really, really big kitchen remodels are at least 6 weeks for the most part, from the time of demolition. And it just kind of depends between how large that space is and what exactly is being done. But it's been very rare that we've had, from the time that we start to demolition to the time that everything is put back into place and you've got dishes in, that it's under 30 days. So just trying to be realistic about that too. I think is crucial. And then the cleanliness part of it as well. People get really frustrated with that, right? Because it is so hard to keep your house clean when you're in the middle of a renovation project, whatever it might be. I had a client the other day. She goes, I don't know how we did her master bath, and she says, I have like drywall dust on literally everything in the entire house. My built-ins downstairs, the piano downstairs. And, that circulation of the air going through your ductwork. I usually tell people, depending on the time of the year, if you've got the ability to shut your furnace off, just flip that switch, while they're there, when they're doing dusty work like drywall work or, things of that nature. It'll help a little bit, but it is not going to remove the dirtiness that those projects create.
Yeah, very
create
true.
in your home. So yeah, I usually tell people make sure that you're changing that furnace filter prior to and then after that project is done, and then a little bit more frequently after that to kind of try to clean those things out. Will definitely help to some degree, but again, just kind of going back to that that planning part of it. I think that, becomes crucial so that you're not disappointed at the end of the day, or, trying to reduce stress, I guess you can say.
Yeah. Oh my
Is an important
goodness.
piece.
Well, let me ask you. I mean, obviously, kitchen design is something big that you do, and just the process of it. I mean, I guess it varies. People sometimes have ideas. If not, you bring them ideas. But do you also, how do you, sit down and make that plan? Do you give them options? Do you show them a 2D or 3D rendering? What's the process like today? Do you ask people to come to you with things picked out from magazines, or do you recommend them going to certain stores?
Um, so typically, with I'm gonna let my dog outside so that she doesn't bark at you. Come on,
It's
dog, go
okay.
outside. Um, so go outside. Go.
Aw.
So with the a lot of renovation projects, come on, go outside. Let's go. Um, Function tends to be a huge thing. So a lot of times, aside from like updating the aesthetics and how things look, right? That the renovation projects process also gives us an opportunity to talk about the function and how we, live and work on our spaces, right? So you got to think about like homes today, people function in them a little bit differently than they used to. So more rooms in a house and less closet space, things of that nature were like huge back then. But now it's like, open spaces and being able to sit in the kitchen and conversate with everybody from the
Mm-hmm.
living space, the dining space, and everything else. And so sometimes when we're renovating homes, it's not just a matter of that one room, but we're
Got it.
thinking about how that one room ties into the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
house too, right? And that's why a lot of times people tend to, when they're doing one small project, and I'm victim of this in my own house, where it bleeds into other areas of the home, right? And
Can't
and
help
then
it.
it just
Yeah.
becomes like a never ending project.
Mm-hmm.
But usually the biggest thing in any room, it doesn't matter if it's a kitchen, if it's a basement, that we're trying to finish, or a bedroom that we're remodeling or we're adding space. I typically tend to start with the function piece. Why are we renovating it to begin with?
Mm-hmm.
And how are we going to utilize this new space? What do we love about what we have now? And what are we lacking? So that we can have that discussion first, because that's going to be crucial in how we implement the pretty stuff, right? So, um, you know, prime example, my husband is an anal person about his personal space, right? So like I don't go in the bathroom when he's getting ready for the day. I just know that's a big no-no and it's going to frustrate him.
Okay.
So when we were building our house, the way that the architectural plans were laid out, they had your typical side by side vanity, and I said, that's just, there was enough space to be able to put two separate vanities across from
Mm-hmm.
each other. And I said, that particular function is going to work so much better for us in the long run, because then we have the ability to be in the bathroom at the same time. I'm not crowding his space. He's a neat freak and a little OCD, so everything has its place. And so like all of these things that, I'm telling you from a personal level, these are conversations that I like to have with my clients before we start a project.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we're just doing decorating, there's a gentleman I'm working with now in his living room, and he says, I'm a type A,
Mm-hmm.
kind of personality. I'm very simple. I don't want 45 pillows on my couch that I need to take off. I
Yep.
don't want a whole bunch of greenery in the space. It's just not my thing. And so
Mm-hmm.
like having those conversations and that planning phase up front just kind of sets everybody up for success. So that's kind of how I dive into any project, is understanding the function piece of it, how we live, how we operate every day. Do we work from home? Do we have kids, dogs, things of that nature? Because I think that's a truly crucial part of any project that you're doing. Because at the end of the day, it can look pretty, but if it doesn't function right for you, then you've kind of missed the mark as far as I'm concerned. So come on. There we go. And they want to go back outside again.
I get it.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, I would say when it comes to, kind of trying to prep and plan for any kind of bath or kitchen project, to having conversation with the family is huge. And shared responsibility with, if you've got a kitchen that is completely, dislodged, and, you've got 3 kids running around, and we still need to get dinners done and lunch is ready, and, things of that nature. I've had people where, if your kitchen sink, for example, dishes, or the dishwasher, maybe things are getting removed, or maybe you don't have a dishwasher yet, but the kitchen remodel is going to give you one. Utilizing bathtubs to wash dishes, things of that nature, just kind of trying to think, outside of that box, but also, be simplistic in everyday use, if you will, throughout the home. Like my kids will use 4 cups in one day. And it's like, why? You
Yep.
really just need one.
Yeah.
Bathrooms and stuff, it's like we utilize one towel and then the kids throw that on the floor and then they go back and get another clean towel. The next thing you know, you've got 6 towels moving in process, so, I think that the mass majority of people kind of underestimate what that process is going to look like from start to finish. And, I don't really know that anybody has ever just been completely stress-free during one of those projects. So, I mean, that's something that you have to anticipate. Just like buying or selling a house, I tell you there's like an exciting part of that process that comes into play, but at some point, it may be the smallest thing or it could be the biggest thing. There's going to be some stress that's involved. It's just part of the game. It's the way that it goes. So I think that you have to just have those expectations up front.
Prepare for that. All right. Just remind us, Kristin, how we can reach you.
So cell phone is 317-376-3351. And design website is www.kristinandinteriordesign.com. And that's Kristin with 2 I's.
Perfect. All right. Let's continue the conversation. If we do want to reach out to you, though, just ask you offer like an initial discovery call. Is there a charge for that, or is there just to talk about a project upcoming to see if you guys would be a good fit?
Yeah. So, and I mean, you hit a really good key term there, because, just like when you are, interviewing anybody for a particular position, we aren't all good fits for everyone. And I'm okay with that. So yes, 100% every single time. I don't even care if it's just a paint color consultation. I always have a phone call ahead of time just to have an understanding. There is no charge for that whatsoever. And just kind of depending on what we're going to be doing, it can be a 5-minute phone call, it can be a 20-minute phone call. But I like to have those conversations up front, take some notes, things of that nature, get a real feel for what the client wants. A lot of times I can have an understanding before I even get there of how much work may be involved or what the client is willing to do up front, as well as just kind of their knowledge of what it is that we're going to do, whether or not they, if it is a remodel project, for example, have they done any projects like that before? So that, are we really, really green and we need to take this in baby steps, or do we have some experience with this? So, and then from there, we will talk about our in-person consultation that we will have in the space, in the home. And since my services aren't really like cookie cutter, like there's not one particular menu of options, if you will, at that point, it's kind of when we determine where are my services going to be best utilized. We can do full-on service, depending on what it is, from decor to remodel, or anything in between, where I'm hand-holding from beginning to start, all the way through the process. But I have a lot of clients that, they love that interactive piece, a gentleman where I'm helping him, do his home office and his living room and a guest bedroom and things like that. And he's like, I want you to bring all the options to me. Just give me, the whole wide world of choices is just too stressful for me. So I need you to limit my options. And it's funny because I sent him like 5 desks the other day, and then I get this message at like 10 o'clock at night or something. And he's like, "Ooh, I found this one that I really," and it's funny because like once they get involved in that process, sometimes they'll tell me one thing and then they get excited
Yeah,
and they just can't help themselves.
absolutely.
um, so, but yeah, I think that the mass majority of people know what they like and they know what they don't like.
Okay.
They just don't know how to bring what they like together and avoid what they don't like. And I think that there's just it's kind of like when you're trying on a new outfit, right? And you ask somebody, "What do you think of my outfit? Like, do I look good? Do I need to switch up the shoes? What do I need to do?" And it's just like that affirmation that you get from somebody else who may have better taste or more experience or whatever it is than you have, making you feel comfortable and confident about the decisions that you're making. Um, I know a lot of people assume that they can go into certain processes and they're like, "I'll just try it by myself. I'll just do it." And then I get a phone call.
Ah, yeah.
So, I think it's just a matter of understanding what your strengths and weaknesses are at that point though, too. And the contractor that you're utilizing is absolutely key in any situation.
Do
Because
you
they're not,
also recommend though to your clients and people that you work
yeah,
with that, okay, good.
yeah, it's not. I mean, I will work with anyone else's contractor. Sometimes, someone has a brother, uncle, someone who, does some work. And, so I always tell people I will work with your contractor. I can refer my own, but it kind of just depends on, what it is that they would like to do. Project wise, making sure that my contractors fit what it is that they would like to do too. So a lot of times when I do talk to people, if we're just in that initial planning phase, they do want some referrals and recommendations. But even if I provide them a referral of my own, I encourage them, to chat with family, friends, neighbors, what have you, and not just talk to that one person because, you want to make sure that at the end of the day, I take very, very seriously when I make recommendations to people. And it is so disheartening when they disappoint me. It's a bad reflection on me too. So I take that very seriously. And so I always give people options, no matter what it might be. I'm going to give you options. And I always tell my clients at the end of the day, you make that final choice. And even if I give you a recommendation, I want my clients to feel like they've made that final decision and I'm not pushing them in one direction or another. So I think that helps them feel more in control of the situation and like they've taken part in it versus here's all the things that we're going to do and you don't really have any choices because I've already laid it all out for you.
True.
Yes, yeah. And that can be, a little bit frustrating for people when they feel like in any situation that they don't have control over it. And most people want to have some, even though they tell you they don't, I promise you they do. So,
Hmm.
um, but, I think in terms of talking about, going into any project process, things of that nature, the visual aspect, as you had kind of mentioned, I
Hmm.
absolutely need that. I think anybody who's going into a project, I promise you, they've looked at Houzz, they've looked at Pinterest, they've scrolled a number of things, online. And so kind of having that visual of what they like and what you don't like sometimes can be key because it can't always just be explained in words. Sometimes we need to have that visual aspect in order to have an understanding of what it is that we want to accomplish, right? So and the mass majority of people need that. So I think that kind of doing that legwork up front, I usually tell people that's crucial as well in that planning process. So
Got it.
most definitely.
Well, we still got 3 minutes left in this show. So, what
Sure.
else, Kristen, did you want to share about you, your services, and
Hmm.
anything that's important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so it's kind of funny because a lot of people tend to I get this little thing about, well, when you come to my house, just it's messy and it's not exactly how I would like you to see it, and, things of that nature. But I always tell people, like, regardless of who you have coming into your home to provide a service to you, don't ever feel like, I want to see people in their element. I want to see how they actually function, how they live in their space, and not like have everything all neat and tidy and ready for me to come in and, that kind of thing. So that would be a point that I have for somebody today, is to just say, don't feel like when someone is coming into your home for, any kind of design purpose or things of that nature, we've got to have everything squeaky clean and everything in its place, because I do want to see how you live on a daily basis. And yeah, so you can find me on my website. It's www.kristinanninteriordesign.com, or you can reach me at 317-376-3351.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And are you on social media too? Do you have a page?
I do. I do have
Right.
Facebook and I have Instagram. You can actually link to those directly from my website. And I will say there are much more portfolio pictures and things of that nature that I have done there, just because it's something that's constantly being updated. So to see some work and things of that nature, I usually tell people to go
Good.
go to Facebook.
All right. Thank you so much, Kristin. Have a fantastic day. You got me thinking and itching. So much I want to do with remodeling the house and interior design work. It's funny. I was checking like the interest rates the other day about refinancing, because some people have the cash to do it, some don't. They do it that way. So I'm like, there's so much I want to do in my home, Long Island. But do you work with people from afar as well? Or is it, just curious, or just in your state?
No, I have a lot of people that we can do a lot of things through videos, through pictures, things of that nature. Larger remodel projects don't tend to work very well from a remote standpoint, but doing furnishings, decor, things of that nature.
Got it. Perfect.
Yeah, those can be doable for sure.
All right. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you here. Have a fantastic day. And we'll
Okay,
talk
you
soon.
too.
Okay. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.